You're listening to the Grit to Growth podcast. Real talk with real business owners and professionals who built their freedom the hard way and now want more time, money, and impact.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Levi Teslav with Mailbox Money here in Sioux Falls. And today I'm joined by Connor Hallstrom, owner of SoDak Industries, a CNC machine shop based in Clark, South Dakota. Connor's built something real special, a precision machine manufacturing business that thrives on quality, innovation, and integrity. What I really like about his story is it's not just about building a company, but about building a life, balancing entrepreneurship, family, and personal growth all at once. Connor, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Levi.
So let's start with a little bit of your personal background, Connor, before we get into what you're doing with SoDak Industries.
Sure. So my wife and I, we've been married for a little over 10 years now, and we've got twin 4-year-old boys, and they were kind of the inspiration for the business side of things to kind of pursue that rather than try to just be an entrepreneur, which I also am currently doing full time as well. But yeah,
Oh, wow.
So basically it's kind of a juggle of being a father, entrepreneur, a little bit of everything right now.
That's amazing. That's no easy task. So you said it was twin boys, correct?
Yep.
I'm sure that's a lot of wrestling running around and craziness
Oh, yeah.
throughout the household, right?
Absolutely. Yep. There's not a boring moment at our house.
That's awesome. Well, Connor, how'd you get into the machine world? And let's hear a little bit about that journey.
Sure. So I'm 30 right now. I've actually been in the machining world for the last 15 years. So since I was 15, I took a precision machining class in high school at a local machine shop. And that kind of got me inspired. I started actually working for the business owner that was the teacher as well.
Wow.
And so I worked with him part-time throughout high school, and then actually went to Lake Area Technical College as well right after high school. And I did the online course, so it took 3 years instead of 2 years, but I was able to work full-time at the machine shop while I did that. And then I actually worked with him for a little over 5 years before I split ways and took a job at another machine shop. And then shortly thereafter, I was there for a couple of years commuting to work. And then I took a job that I still hold now at a different local machine shop that's 4 or 5 miles down the road. And that kind of, during that time period is when my wife and I ended up having our 2 boys. And right about their 1-year-old mark is when I decided that, I see that there's a constant need for machinists in the world. I get job offers on a monthly basis because it's kind of a dying trade, you could say. Most average machinists are probably in their 40s or 50s. And so for a younger person, an energetic, motivated younger person, I kind of saw an opportunity there to pursue the business as well. And with the boys, I thought, I wanted to have something for them to take over or possibly inherit one day as well. So I'm still working full time while doing the entrepreneur. So I'm still in the kind of grit portion of the building of the business stage.
I love it. That's awesome. You were kind of talking before the show, and we wanted to get people. What are machinists doing for the average person who doesn't know what machine shops are and what kind of capabilities they have?
Yeah, absolutely. So most people ask what a machinist is or what a machine is. And we specialize in CNC machining, which is computer programmed machines that you can actually use software or type out the code longhand. It's kind of similar to computer programming, but it's directly correlated to the machines that you're making the parts out of. So most people don't realize that most anything automotive or any kind of manufacturing, whether it's farm equipment or anything like that, actually does require machining in this process. And so that's kind of where we're splicing between a production machine shop at our business and a job shop, which a job shop is low volume, high turnover. So you typically never run the same part twice, or if you do, it's 10 pieces or less, 20 pieces or less. And we're trying to kind of keep that business model, but also bridge the gap to production machining as well, to where we're doing hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of quantity of parts as well. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a rundown of it, but it's mainly like super precise machining where a normal manual machine probably just won't cut it for production standards. But
So
it's
what
a
kind of
lot.
companies are, oh, go ahead.
We work with any kind of metals, wood, plastics. We've been doing a lot of plastics lately, but it's it's nice because it doesn't limit you to what you can work on. You can kind of work on a little bit of everything with the CNC machines.
So from my understanding that these companies who need these kind of parts, they are partnering with machine shops to make them, correct?
Yep, exactly. Yep. So our main customers are kind of a broad spectrum. We have quite a few different customers. Like one of our biggest customers is a heavy equipment and crane repair shop in Pennsylvania that we actually do a lot of a lot of their small quantity repair jobs for products, that might be outdated or hard to source. And then we actually just ship them to them because we've actually been able to be productive and competitive with our pricing in order to actually ship it cross country. So we've kind of broke into that market a little bit. And then another one of our large customers is a ranch and rodeo equipment company just on the road in Watertown. And we do most of the machining for them for their different components, whether it's hinges or different kind of latch pins or stuff like that for them as well.
Yeah, so it can be all kinds of different parts, like you alluded to, right? What are kind of maybe some of the more common things that people reach out for?
We do quite a bit of different repair jobs, whether it's a piece of farm equipment that breaks down and, oh, we need this part and it takes 6 weeks and costs $6,000 from John Deere case to get, where we can reverse engineer it and have it to them within a couple of days or a week and be a lot more competitive with pricing as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you noted, is there a pretty good competitive edge being, located in South Dakota, pretty central of the country? Like you mentioned, you're working with Pennsylvania, and have you noticed as far as that as a competitive advantage for you?
Yeah, I think that it allows a big competitive advantage in South Dakota with the lower taxes, and we keep a pretty tight ship as far as very low overhead to where we don't overextend ourselves with super, super expensive brand new equipment and stuff like that. Allows us to be a lot more competitive with like our hourly rates that we give to our customers.
Very cool. So walk me through kind of what like the day-to-day operations in a machine shop looks like.
Sure. It starts with a customer reaching out with a blueprint typically, and they give us the specifications on the blueprint of what they expect as far as tolerances, material type, everything like that, quantity. We bid it accordingly. Depending on how complex it is, you can plug it into our software and it'll generate a program for you as well as give you a runtime. So kind of a pretty decent idea on time of what it's going to be. And then you submit the quote. Sometimes you hear back within a day, sometimes it's a month. And then if you're awarded the job, then you have to go through the process of ordering the materials and any specialized tooling for it. And so it's a little bit difficult to plan for the lower quantity jobs to have the tooling or material on hand. So it becomes kind of a balance of that as far as ordering just enough material, but you also want to have enough in case anything happens and you have to replace parts or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then once you actually get the material on hand, then you make a program to run it on the machine. You have to create all the tools, make all the tool paths and everything like that, program the machine, run the parts, inspect all the parts, package them up, send them out to the customer.
Okay. Very cool. So you mentioned that a lot of people in your industry, like you said, are kind of starting to age out. They're getting closer to retirement. How would you encourage and maybe educate the younger generation of getting into what you're doing?
So I always say the high school class, ironically, where my shop's located, I actually rent shop space from the shop that I originally worked at and where the
Funny.
school is located. So I'm actually kind of brought it back home as far as being co-located with where the students are being taught in the afternoon. So, I have a couple of interested kids usually come over and ask a bunch of questions and want to see what's going on with my machines. But I would say just more than anything, show up early. Don't show up late. Show up on time. Actually ask a bunch of questions. There's no stupid questions. It's people make the mistake all the time of not asking questions and just trying to figure it out themselves and messing parts up, and it's can be quite expensive, the mistakes that you can make doing that. And try to just absorb as much information from the older generation as you possibly can, because they're the ones that started this process or continued the process. So if you want to continue it, you have to try to take in as much of their knowledge and advice as you possibly can. And some of the advice might seem kind of silly sometimes, but you never know a couple years down the line when the older person suggested using something that's not necessarily to standard, but it works a lot better, that you can actually use it. I've found that quite often in the last 10 years.
Along those lines, you said you started when you were 15, so over the last 15 ish years, have you seen some change in the industry, and what has that been?
Lately, I've been noticing a lot of integration with robotics. So I would say any younger person that's really interested in it, and if you want to take it to the most possible competitive edge, I would say to try to get a background with robotics as well as CNC machining. If you combine those two, I think that you're golden to have a career the rest of your life. You don't have to worry about the robots taking your job or anything like that that people talk about. When you're the one that's making the robots do what they're doing or able to fix them, I would say that would be the number one change that I've noticed lately. Is any higher production machine shops typically integrate robot handlers, whether it's picking up the part, putting it in the machine knows it, it starts, runs automatically, flawlessly. It can run 24/7 without a human being there to actually change the part.
Yeah, I think that might be a common misconception. You hit on that. There is computer coding going on in these shops and everything, and I don't think a lot of people realize that they might have that passion for the computer coding, but don't really care about the parts or whatever. How would you
Yeah.
encourage that kind of person to get integrated with the machine shop?
I think that starting from the ground up is the best way to do it. The way that I learned it is I was told by an older person that at one of the machine shops I worked at that you should always learn to write the code out on a piece of paper by hand. So that way you actually have the knowledge of it. Don't always just rely on the software to do all of the work for you, because the software does make mistakes. If you click the wrong button or something like that, you can actually go back in the background and change it or double check it as you go. But you can always get into CNC machining or anything like that as just a programmer where you're not actually changing the parts. There's a lot of places where they have full offices of people that's all they do is write code or run the software all day, and they actually don't go out onto the floor. So if you want to do that and not get your hands dirty, there's still a career path for you there as well.
Amazing. All right, I'm gonna flip it back to a little bit more personal. What's something
Yeah.
your boys have taught you about patience and perspective?
Um a lot. They've taught me a lot about patience, about not overreacting at the end of the day. Days are get quite long with doing both jobs at the same time, where it's 70, 80, 90 hour weeks. And typically I only get a couple hours at the end of the night with them. So it's making the most out of the small amount of time and not they start getting into a fist fight with each other, which happens more often than I care to admit, don't overreact and try to just remember that you have to cherish every moment that you have with them, because another 5-10 years from now, they won't want to hang out at home with dad and mom anymore. They're going to want to be with their friends. So I think that that's more than anything is cherishing the moments with them and being patient and not overreacting or anything like that. Or if there's stress at work, to try not to bring it home also.
Yeah, that's amazing. So then it's your wife. Is she also working, or is she staying at home with the boys?
So my wife had a daycare in our home for the last 9 years, and she finally made the move just recently. We've been doing well enough with the business where she's staying at home with the boys, and then she's doing all the bookkeeping, and then she also comes and helps run the machines for production jobs where it's just changing the parts as well.
That's awesome. Really a whole family integrated business then, huh?
Yep, exactly. Yep, on the weekends, the boys like to come out to the shop and hit the green button on dad's machine, and they usually hang out and watch videos on YouTube, and then they run over so they can hit start on the machine and watch it run. So trying to get them interested at a young age if it's possible.
That's amazing. Would you encourage other entrepreneurs and business people to integrate the family into the business?
Absolutely. I've had nothing but joy out of it. It gives me a good chance to spend extra time with the boys and with my wife. And it gives them a understanding of what dad does when he's not at home, so they don't just assume dad's gone all the time. It kind of gives them
Yep.
a little bit better understanding, and not a forceful, they don't feel forced into it. If they decide they want to do it in the future, great. Then they have the option of potentially being interested in it rather than just being told that they have to do something one day, which that way they kind of can make their own mind up in the future.
That's a great perspective on it. Well, Connor, if people want to learn more about what you or SoDak Industries are doing, where would you send them to?
So they can reach out on our website at SoDak, SoDak Industries.com, or they can shoot me an email at SoDakIndustries1@gmail.com as well.
That's awesome. Well, Connor, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us and encourage others to pursue their dreams and passion. It's pretty awesome to hear how you've been able to, like you said, juggle both working, running a business, and being part of a family. It's inspiring stuff to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the time, Levi. Thank you.
Of course. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you on the next one.
Know someone with serious grit and a great growth story? Send them our way at grittogrowthpodcast.com/guest.